What if Brassed Off was never just a simple British drama? Behind the screen lies a far darker truth. As the cameras stopped rolling, some careers exploded, others quietly collapsed, and a few stories were buried completely. Stay with us, because one transformation will change the way you see Brassed Off forever. Pete Postlethwaite. As Danny. Pete Postlethwaite was born on February 7, 1946, in Warrington, Lancashire, England. At 50 years old, he played Danny, the stubborn, worn-down leader of the colliery brass band in Brassed Off. The character became the emotional spine of the film, embodying pride, resistance, and the slow destruction of a working-class world. That depth was rooted in his early years. Raised in a working-class Catholic family, Pete grew up surrounded by discipline, financial pressure, and emotional restraint. He was educated in religious institutions that emphasized control and endurance, shaping a temperament built to absorb pressure. Those qualities later surfaced in performances such as Distant Voices, Still Lives, and In the Name of the Father. His personal life unfolded gradually. Pete shared a long partnership with Jacqueline Moorish, living together for 16 years before marrying in 2003, while raising their children Billy and Lily. As his reputation expanded through films like The Usual Suspects and Alien 3, long periods away from home became routine, placing strain on family life and reinforcing his tendency to retreat inward. Health became the defining challenge of his later years. In 1990, Pete was diagnosed with testicular cancer and underwent surgery, returning to acting with renewed intensity. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2009, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, continuing to work through visible physical decline while appearing in Inception and The Town, performances marked by a haunting sense of finality. Sadly, he died at 64 years old on January 2, 2011, from pancreatic cancer at Royal Shrewsbury Hospital. He left behind an estimated net worth of $5 million, earned through decades of uncompromising work, and a legacy defined by truth rather than fame. Tara Fitzgerald as Gloria Mullins. Tara Fitzgerald was born in 1967 in Cuckfield, Sussex, England. At 29 years old, she played Gloria Mullins, the intelligent, conflicted management executive in Brassed Off. Her performance sharpened the film's social conflict, turning economic debate into personal tragedy. That emotional control was shaped early. Tara experienced family separation in childhood and the loss of her father at a young age, events that fostered self-reliance and inward focus. Formal training at Drama Centre London gave structure to that intensity, leading to demanding roles such as Sirens and her acclaimed stage performance as Ophelia in Hamlet. Marriage brought another turning point. Tara married John Sharian in 2001, but the relationship ended in 2003, coinciding with a period of intense professional activity. During those years, she balanced theater and television work, including Waking the Dead. Later challenges emerged within the industry itself. As substantial roles for women narrowed with age, Tara confronted structural limitations rather than personal collapse. She responded by expanding into directing, using experience gained across stage and screen to remain creatively present and to influence stories from behind the camera. Today, Tara Fitzgerald is 59 years old and continues to work across film, television, theater, and directing. Her career remains steady and respected, supported by an estimated net worth of around $3 million. Her story endures as one of persistence, quiet, disciplined, and shaped by resilience rather than retreat. Ewan McGregor as Andy Barrow. Ewan McGregor was born on March 31, 1971, in Perth, Scotland. At 25 years old, he played Andy Barrow, the energetic young miner and trumpet player in Brassed Off. Andy brought speed, youth, and emotional urgency to the story, giving the film a pulse that balanced its older characters. That urgency reflected his early years. Ewan left school at 16, restless and unsure, taking backstage jobs at the Perth Theatre while training himself to survive rejection. He pushed forward through small roles until Shallow Grave and Trainspotting arrived almost back-to-back, turning uncertainty into sudden exposure before he was fully prepared for it. Marriage came early and carried its own weight. Ewan married Eve Mavrakis in 1995, and together they raised 4 daughters, building a family while his career exploded through Star Wars, and later, Moulin Rouge. The strain of global fame, constant travel, and public scrutiny slowly fractured the relationship, ending in a highly publicized divorce finalized in 2020. Health concerns surfaced quietly along the way. In 2008, Ewan underwent surgery to remove a cancerous mole, a moment that forced him to confront vulnerability just as he was juggling franchise pressure and awards attention. Around the same era, he publicly acknowledged earlier struggles with alcohol, choosing sobriety as his career expanded into demanding projects like Angels and Demons and The Ghostwriter. Now, Ewan McGregor is 55 years old and remains a leading figure in global cinema, balancing blockbuster visibility with character-driven work. With an estimated net worth of around $50 million earned through franchises, awards-winning performances, and producing, he now divides his time between film, family, and long-term creative control, no longer chasing momentum, but shaping it. Stephen Tompkinson as Phil Ormonroyd. Stephen Tompkinson was born on October 15, 1965, in Stockton-on-Tees, England. At 31 years old, he played Phil Ormonroyd, the sharp-tongued yet emotionally bruised band member in Brassed Off. Phil's humor masked desperation, adding tragic irony that deepened the film's emotional range. That adaptability began early. Stephen's childhood involved frequent moves and strict Catholic schooling, forcing constant adjustment and emotional self-containment. Drama school became his anchor, and early television work soon followed, leading to recognition in Drop the Dead Donkey and later Ballycassangel. His personal life mirrored that instability. Stephen married Celia Anastasia, later became engaged to Dervla Kerwin, then married Nikki Taylor, with whom he had a daughter, Daisy Ellen. Each relationship unfolded alongside intense professional schedules, and repeated separations reflected a troubled life. Career pressure never eased. While successes like DCY Banks brought long-term acclaim, setbacks such as the failure of sitcoms, Downwardly Mobile, and Mr. Charity tested his resilience. Instead of retreating, Stephen expanded into narration, presenting, and theater, keeping visibility alive through his reinvention. Today, Stephen Tompkinson is 61 years old and continues working steadily across British television and stage. With an estimated net worth of around $5 million, built through longevity rather than stardom, he remains defined by endurance. Jim Carter as Harry. Jim Carter was born on August 19, 1948, in Harrogate, England. At 48 years old, he played Harry, the wry, grounded band member in Brassed Off. His dry humor and lived-in realism gave the film breathing room, reminding audiences that laughter can survive even as livelihoods disappear. That grounded presence came from choice rather than hardship. Jim's childhood carried no public tragedy, but his decision to leave university marked an early break from convention. Abandoning law studies, he committed himself fully to theater, accepting uncertainty and low pay while touring with small companies, a period that quietly shaped the discipline later visible in films like The Madness of King George and Shakespeare in Love. Marriage became his point of balance. Jim met actress Imelda Staunton in the early 1980s, and they married in 1983, building a rare, long-lasting partnership in the industry. While his career moved steadily through stage and screen, including Cranford and numerous character roles, family life with Imelda and their daughter Bessie remained constant rather than chaotic. Professionally, the pressure came from persistence rather than scandal. Years of modest income and supporting roles tested his patience, but he continued choosing craft over exposure. That resolve paid off when he became globally recognized as Mr. Carson in Downton Abbey, a role that earned ensemble awards and redefined his late career visibility. Now, Jim Carter is 78 years old and remains active in acting, returning repeatedly to the Downton Abbey films while continuing selective screen work. With an estimated net worth of around $8 million, his career stands as proof that endurance, not volatility, can still lead to lasting success. Philip Jackson as Jim. Philip Jackson was born on June 18, 1948, in Retford, Nottinghamshire, England. At 48 years old, he played Jim, one of the weary working-class figures in Brassed Off. His restrained performance blended seamlessly into the ensemble, reinforcing the film's sense of collective struggle rather than individual heroics. His path began through steady preparation. Philip studied drama and German at the University of Bristol, then moved through regional theatre in Leeds and Liverpool, learning to hold attention without spectacle. That foundation later supported memorable roles in productions such as Waiting for Godot on stage and Little Voice on screen. Family life provided structure amid constant work. Philip married actress Sally Baxter, and together they raised 2 children, maintaining a private domestic rhythm while he navigated long television schedules. During this period, he became widely recognized as Chief Inspector Japp in Poirot, a role that demanded consistency and restraint across many years. Career challenges came from typecasting rather than collapse. Television success risked narrowing opportunities, yet Philip continued to alternate between radio drama, theater, and film, appearing in projects like My Week with Marilyn and Robin of Sherwood. This steady diversification kept his work visible without chasing reinvention. By 2026, Philip Jackson is 78 years old and continues to be respected for his long-form television and radio work. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, his career reflects durability over spectacle, built on reliability, range, and a quiet commitment to the craft. Peter Martin as Ernie. Peter Martin was born in December 1941 in Gainsborough, Lincolnshire, England. At 55 years old, he played Ernie, the quiet, good-natured band member in Brassed Off. His presence added warmth and ordinariness to the ensemble, grounding the film in faces that felt real rather than heroic. That authenticity was shaped very early. Peter's childhood unfolded during World War II, when his family was forced to leave Hull because of relentless German bombing during the Hull Blitz. Growing up amid displacement and uncertainty left him with a deep awareness of vulnerability, something that later surfaced naturally in understated performances like First of the Summer Wine and All Creatures Great and Small. Instead of chasing stardom, Peter built a career on reliability. He became familiar to British audiences through steady television work, eventually gaining wider recognition as Joe Carroll in The Royal Family. His longest-running role came later as Len Reynolds in Emmerdale. The pressure in his life came less from scandal and more from impermanence. Despite working continuously, Peter rarely held leading roles, moving from project to project without the security of marquee status. Even so, he remained active well into later life, appearing in productions such as Walk Like a Panther, proof of endurance rather than reinvention. Sadly, he died at 81 years old on April 19, 2023. His passing closed a career defined by persistence, not headlines, leaving behind an estimated net worth of around $1 million earned through decades of honest work. He is remembered as one of those actors whose faces stay with audiences long after the credits fade. Sue Johnston as Vera Sue Johnston was born on December 7, 1943, in Warrington, England. At 53 years old, she played Vera, the sharp-tongued, emotionally resilient wife in Brassed Off. Her performance brought blunt humor and quiet endurance, reinforcing the film's portrait of women carrying invisible burdens. That strength was forged early. Sue grew up in a working-class environment and entered the workforce young, holding multiple jobs before acting was even an option. By the time she trained formally, she was already hardened by experience, a reality that later fueled performances in Brookside and My Uncle Silas. Her personal life carried its own fractures. Sue married twice, both marriages ending in divorce, and raised her son Joel largely while navigating an industry that offered her few opportunities. During the same period, she rebuilt her career from the ground up, eventually finding late success as Barbara Royal in The Royal Family. Health struggles ran beneath the surface. Sue has spoken openly about battles with depression and eating disorders, conditions that shadowed her even as her career finally accelerated. Roles such as Waking the Dead drew directly from that inner discipline, turning personal struggle into emotional precision on screen. Today, Sue Johnston is 83 years old and remains a respected figure in British television and theater. With an estimated net worth of around $4 million, earned largely from late career success, her story stands as one of delayed recognition, proof that survival, not speed, sometimes defines a legacy. Melanie Hill as Sandra Ormonroyd. Melanie Hill was born in 1962 in Brighton, England. At 34 years old, she played Sandra Ormonroyd, the emotionally strained wife caught inside a collapsing mining family in Brastoff. Her role added domestic pressure to the story, showing how economic collapse quietly corrodes marriages behind closed doors. That emotional credibility came from years of steady groundwork rather than early fame. Trained at RADA, Melanie entered television through working-class dramas, becoming widely known as Aveline in Bread and later Hazel Redfern in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet. These roles anchored her as a familiar face of everyday British life, never glamorous, always believable. Her private life, however, was far more turbulent. Melanie married Sean Bean in 1990, and together they had 2 daughters, but the marriage fractured under personal strain and public attention, ending in divorce in 1997. During that same period, she continued working consistently, refusing to step back even as her family life unraveled. Instead of retreating, her career stabilized. She transitioned smoothly into long-running television, appearing in Playing the Field, Waterloo Road, and later becoming a central figure as Kathy Matthews in Coronation Street. These roles reflected maturity rather than reinvention, proving longevity through reliability. Now, Melanie Hill is 64 years old and remains active on British television, most recently in Casualty. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, her career stands as a portrait of survival, less dramatic than collapse, but built on persistence after personal rupture. Mary Healey as Ida. Mary Healey was born in 1942 in Rugby, Warwickshire, England. At 54 years old, she played Ida, a quiet, observant woman on the edge of the band's world in Brastoff. Though understated, her presence reinforced the film's sense that entire communities, not just individuals, were slowly being worn down. Her restraint was learned early. Raised in a working-class household, Mary grew up surrounded by financial limits and emotional economy, learning to speak little and observe much. That background later informed small but precise appearances in projects like King and Castle and Doctor Who, where subtlety mattered more than volume. Unlike many peers, Mary's career remained deliberately modest. She built a life on supporting roles, moving between television and film without chasing recognition, later appearing as Eileen in Line of Duty, where her minimal screen time still carried weight. Consistency, not exposure, defined her professional rhythm. Her personal life offered stability rather than drama. Mary married Morgan Deere, and their long-standing partnership provided grounding while she continued working quietly across decades. The absence of public upheaval allowed her to remain focused on craft rather than reinvention. As of 2026, Mary Healey is 84 years old and lives largely outside the spotlight. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, accumulated through decades of steady work, her legacy rests on endurance, an actress whose impact was never loud, yet never disposable. Kenneth Colley as Greasley. Kenneth Colley was born on the 7th of December 1937 in Manchester, England. At 59 years old, he played Greasley, the sharp-tongued, quietly cynical presence within the band in Brassed Off. Though not a leading role, Greasley sharpened the film's realism, embodying the weary skepticism of men who had seen too many promises broken. That emotional weight was rooted in a long and demanding early life. Colley grew up in post-war England and entered acting with a significant obstacle, a lifelong stammer that shaped his confidence and limited early opportunities. Yet through discipline and theater work, he built a foundation that led to character roles in demanding productions, including Jesus in Life of Brian and Shakespearean television adaptations. His marriage to Mary Dunn, beginning in 1962, became the emotional constant of his life. While his career expanded quietly through films and television, the couple remained together for over 5 decades, enduring the instability of an acting life until Mary's death in 2018. Professionally, Colley was never a star, but always indispensable. He became globally recognizable as Admiral Piet in Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. A rare Imperial officer allowed dignity and survival. He balanced these mainstream appearances with intense historical and dramatic roles, including Firefox and War and Remembrance. Sadly, he died on June 30th, 2025, at the age of 87, in Ashford, Kent, during the afternoon hours. After a fall that injured his arm, he contracted COVID-19, which progressed into pneumonia while hospitalized. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, his legacy is that of endurance, an actor who overcame physical limitation and remained working for more than 6 decades. Lill Roughley as Rita. Lill Roughley was born on the 9th of July, 1949, in Prescott, Lancashire, England. At 47 years old, she played Rita, a grounded, working-class woman reflecting the everyday cost of economic collapse in Brassed Off. Her performance added texture rather than spectacle, reinforcing the film's sense of ordinary lives slowly wearing down. Her realism came from lived experience. Raised in a working-class environment, Roughley entered acting without privilege, taking small television roles throughout the 1970s and 1980s. She became a familiar presence in British households through steady appearances in Inspector Morse, Bergerac, and collaborations with Victoria Wood, including As Seen on TV and Dinner Ladies. Unlike many contemporaries, her career never surged. It accumulated. She found lasting recognition as Ella Dawkins in My Hero and through appearances in Coronation Street, carving out a space as a reliable supporting actress whose presence felt authentic rather than theatrical. Her personal life offered greater stability than her professional one. Married to William Perry since 1971, she raised 3 children while continuing to work across television and radio, balancing family responsibility with an unpredictable industry. As of 2026, Lill Roughley is 77 years old and has largely stepped away from acting. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, built from decades of consistent work rather than fame, her career stands as a quiet testament to longevity, proof that impact is not always measured by leading roles, but by persistence. Peter Gunn as Simo. Peter Gunn was born on the 13th of February 1963 in Lytham St. Anne's, Lancashire, England. At 33 years old, he played Simo, a blunt, working-class band member struggling inside a collapsing community in Brassed Off. Though a supporting role, Simo grounded the film in raw realism, reminding viewers that economic collapse hits ordinary men first. That realism was shaped early. Growing up in northern England, Gunn entered acting without glamour or shortcuts, learning the craft through small television parts and steady theater work. Roles in shows like London's Burning and later 24-Hour Party People reflected a career built on persistence rather than instant recognition. Instead of chasing reinvention, Gunn chose stability. He became widely familiar to British audiences as Brian Packham in Coronation Street, a long-running role that quietly secured his place in mainstream television. During the same period, he balanced drama and lighter work, including appearances in Born and Bred and television films. His personal life remained calm compared to many peers. Married to Julie Gunn since 2000, he raised 2 sons, maintaining a low-profile family life while continuing to work consistently in television and occasional film projects. Today, Peter Gunn is 63 years old and still active in British television and public appearances. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, his career stands as a model of endurance, never headline-driven, yet quietly dependable for nearly 3 decades. Stephen Moore as Mackenzie. Stephen Moore was born on the 11th of December 1937 in Brixton, London, England. At 59 years old, he played Mackenzie, a sharp, authoritative presence representing institutional pressure in Brassed Off. His performance added tension to the story, embodying the distant forces dismantling the miner's way of life. That authority came from a demanding upbringing. Raised in London and educated at a grammar school, Moore trained himself into a formidable stage and television actor, developing a distinctive voice that became his trademark. This skill carried him into major productions like Brideshead Revisited and extensive work with the Royal Shakespeare Company. His career reached cultural immortality through sound rather than image. Moore became unforgettable as Marvin the paranoid android in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a role that defined British science fiction radio and television. Alongside this, he maintained a respected stage career, earning a Tony Award nomination, a rare achievement for a British actor of his generation. Moore's private life was far less settled. Married 4 times and father to 5 children, his personal world reflected constant change, mirroring the restlessness that fueled his performances. Acting remained the one constant thread holding his life together. Stephen Moore died on the 4th of October 2019 at the age of 81. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, accumulated through decades of theater, radio, and television, his legacy rests in voice, intellect, and intensity. An actor whose presence lingered long after the screen went dark. More than 3 decades later, the cast of Brassed Off, 1996, tells a story far bigger than the film itself, of quiet disappearances, hard-won survival, and legacies shaped by time. Some found lasting fame, others faded into anonymity, but every role left a mark that still resonates today. Which cast member's journey surprised you the most, and whose story deserves more recognition? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more then and now stories you won't hear anywhere else.